Once you compare yourself to another person and you say, wait a second, I'm better than him, I'm able to learn better than him, I'm able to do mitzvahs better than him, it's gaiva. What are you comparing? You know what tools HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him? It's not a race between you and him.
Wherever you get your podcasts from, or our own website, prismoftorah.com. This is the Prism of Torah with Rabbi Ksav Aaron Prisman. This week, Parshas Noach, your real competition.
Shalom to everyone. In this week's Parshas Noach, I want to share with you a perspective about what Noach was all about from the eyes of the Ben Ish Chai. The Ben Ish Chai in the Drushim says the following vote. The first pasuk, as we are all familiar with, about Noach, it says, Ela toldas Noach, Noach ish tzaddik tamim haya b'do Yosef. Noach was a perfect tzaddik. It doesn't just say the word tzaddik, it says tzaddik tamim. Tamim in Lashon HaKodesh means perfect. In modern Hebrew it means innocent, but in Lashon HaKodesh means a perfect tzaddik. He was a perfect tzaddik. Tzaddik tamim haya b'do Yosef. Es Elokim misalich Noach. And Noach walked with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The question that Ben Ish Chai raises is, it's a bit of an extreme statement. What does it mean he was a perfect tzaddik? A tzaddik, a righteous person, I understand, but a perfect tzaddik? What does that mean? I want to add to the Ben Ish Chai's question, if I may, and I want to say, we all know the famous argument, machlokes, that Rashi brings down about Noach. What is this redundancy of the words he was a tzaddik, but in his generations? Why? Obviously, he was in his generation. Why did the pasuk have to say he was a righteous person in his generation? So we all know the machlokes that Rashi brings down, that yesh dorshim legnai v'yesh dorshim l'shevach. Some say, only relative to his generation he was a tzaddik, but relative to Avraham Avinu's generation over there, he wouldn't be a big tzaddik. And others say, what do you mean? Fakert, exactly the opposite. Even though, meaning despite the fact he was in a generation that was a wicked generation, still he was able to overcome the effect of the environment on him and become a big tzaddik. So the Ben Ish Chai's question is even stronger. According to the Man Da'amal, to that opinion, that says that Noach was only a tzaddik in his generation, but he wouldn't be such a big tzaddik if he lived in Avraham Avinu's generation. So the question is even stronger. What do you mean he was a perfect tzaddik? It seems like he wasn't such a perfect tzaddik after all, because relative to Avraham Avinu's generation, he wouldn't even be a tzaddik. So you're calling him here a perfect tzaddik? What does that mean? That's my addition to the question of the Ben Ish Chai. The Ben Ish Chai answers based on the Gemara in Megillah, Daf Kaf Tes Amud Aleph. The Gemara over there says, Kol mi sheyesh lo gaiva ve'yehirus harei ze ba'al mum. A person who has gaiva, who has haughtiness, is full of himself, that person is called a ba'al mum, which means he has a blemish. Because of this bad trait of gaiva, of being full of himself. And he wants to say the following. Hare, we all know, if you think about it, a person that's a really be'etzem, and his essence is a tzaddik, he's a good person. He's a tzaddik, he has good midos, he does everything properly. So where could you find his real nisayon? His real nisayon, his real test is, how is he going to view himself? Is he going to say to himself, well, I'm better than others. Look at me, I'm a big tzaddik, I'm a righteous person. That's his biggest yetzer hara. And if despite the fact that he has that yetzer hara, because at the end of the day he knows what it's all about, he knows that he's doing mitzvahs, he's getting close to Hashem, etc., etc., that could easily feed the yetzer hara, give him ammunition to tell the person, you're way more important than the other yidins around you. You're more chashuv. And despite the fact that huge yetzer hara is up against Noach, the pasuk tells us, zokt the Ben Ish Chai, that he was able to overcome that, and hence he was wholesome. Tamim means wholesome, perfect. He was perfect in the sense that he overcame that yetzer hara that usually tzaddikim have, which is to fight off the trait of gaiva. And that's why he's not, just like the Gemara in Megillah says, that a person that does have this trait and lost his yetzer hara, then he's nechshav a ba'al mum. he has a blemish. But a person that's perfect, that even in that, even a tzaddik, is able to overcome that, he's a perfect tzaddik. He doesn't have a balmum. And that's the taich. That's the meaning of the word, that he was a perfect tzaddik. Perfect is coming to exclude that he doesn't have any trait of the midah of gaiva. Continues the Ben Ish Chai to say, and how was he able to fight off this yetzer, the biggest yetzer that usually tzaddikim have, which is the yetzer of gaiva, to be full of oneself, because look at me, I'm a big tzaddik. So he says, that's the hemshech of the pasuk. The pasuk says, Esa Elokim hishalech Noach. His continuous feeling, zokt the Ben Ish Chai, was that he's still far from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's always doing his best to continue to walk and get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the lashon of halicha. Halicha is to go. He's going towards something. He was focused. He had a goal. He's aiming to reach his goal, to get as close as he can to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And once that's your focus, mimele, you don't have the feeling of gaiva. All you're doing is being focused on continuing to get closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So I want to elaborate on that nekuda. There's a couple of points I want to raise. First of all, we see that when a person, from this drasha, we see that when a person is focused to get close to Hashem, he doesn't care about other people. He doesn't think, I'm better than Yanim, than the other Yid. It doesn't matter. His total focus in life is to get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I think that's a good definition that my Rebbe once told me between gaiva, which is a very negative trait, as opposed to self-worth and self-confidence, which is very important to have. If one doesn't have that, it's close to impossible to be mashpia, to affect in a positive manner all the circles you're a part of, your family, your friends, your workplace, etc., etc. So what is the definition? Perhaps, based on what my Rebbe told me, and I think it makes a lot of sense to me as well, once you compare yourself to another person and you say, wait a second, I'm better than him, I'm able to learn better than him, I'm able to do mitzvahs better than him, then it's a big problem. That's gaiva. What are you comparing? You know what tools HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him. It's not a race between you and him. You are able to say to yourself, however, wait a second, let's see where I'm holding compared to my potential. Am I maximizing my potential? And am I continuously growing and trying to get closer to Kadosh Baruch Hu? That's what life is all about. When you go in that path, and that's your rationale and way of thinking, then you're in a good place. And if you do it in the right way, and you just want to mimic HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ve'alachta b'drochav, as we spoke a couple weeks ago, then you're totally concentrating on just doing the best you can and getting close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mimele, it's okay to feel, looking back and seeing what you accomplished and give yourself a pat on the back. You need that. That gives you also fuel to continue and progress and climb up that ladder of getting closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and trying to mimic HaKadosh Baruch Hu ways, as we know Chazal tell us to do. You want to do the best you can. Just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is all about giving, you want to tap into that as well and give. And if a person really does that, and those that did, they know that the geshmak, even in this world, is way better than anything else. When you just get, that's the horrible feeling. But when you give, then you tap into HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're being like HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the Betzel Melokim we have. Another nekuda I want to elaborate on is this idea that a person has to always be on the move of going up. Because there's no such thing as just staying still. As we spoke about based on the Gra a couple of weeks ago, a person has to always move up. The second a person stops going up the ladder, he'll eventually go down. There's no such a thing as staying static. That's a Mefulish Shigah and Mishlei that we shared with you a couple of weeks ago. And that's, I think, what also you could see over here. Noach was totally focused on always getting closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, mimicking HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ways as much as he could. Mimele, when one goes in such a mahalach, then he's totally concentrating on that. Mimele has an automatic ripple effect. As a result, he doesn't have any tzad to compare himself to someone else, because all he's doing is totally being focused on working his way up, getting to closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, without looking left and right about another person. It's only between you and yourself. And at the time my Rebbe told me this idea, I asked him, but we know Chazal say, kinat soifrim tar bechokma. It sounds like there is a type of jealousy that's healthy. When you look at someone else, wow, look how much he's learning. Wow, I should be able to do that as well. Look. So the answer to that, my Rebbe told me, you're learning it incorrectly. To literally look at someone else and want to be like him, that's a major problem. Because how can you compare yourself to Nadid? Everyone has a different mission in life, a different tafkid. He got different tools from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What is a healthy comparison is, wow, I can see that my friend is maximizing his potential. I really want to do that as well. And that is a very positive way of thinking. Because you're just getting this idea from your friend. You're jealous of your friend in a positive way, that you see that he's really maximizing his potential, and you should do that as well. But to be jealous of his results, that's a major problem. The Ksav Sofer would tell you that's even gvuli. That's borderline to be called an apikoros. Why? The Ksav Sofer says that we all know there's the 10 commandments, which seem to represent the basic ideas of Yiddishkeit. And yet the Ksav Sofer asks, I don't understand. There's one thing in the 10 commandments, in Aseres HaDibros, that doesn't really feel like it's such a basic idea, and that is lo sachmod. Lo sachmod means you shouldn't want what your friend has. Not his wife, not his slave, etc., etc. And there's a machlokes rishonim what that means. Are you over the isser just by wanting what your friend has, or even by going ahead and trying to take it from him? But it doesn't matter. Either way, how can that be the most fundamental concept in Yiddishkeit, the top 10? Especially according to those rishonim that learn, it's enough for you just to want to have your friend's wife or slave. That's already gets you over the isser. So what's wrong in that? Asks the Ksav Sofer. And the Ksav Sofer answers, because if you don't realize that whichever way HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated the world, that you'll get your tools, your wife and your slave and your house to do your tafkid, your mission in life, if you don't come to that acknowledgement, then there's something radically wrong in your way of thinking. Your whole hashkafa is krum. Something's not right over here. You have to realize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated in a way that you'll have everything you need to be able to do your tafkid and your tikkun in this world. And it's the same idea. That's why jealousy is a horrible thing. It comes from comparing to other people. You can't be jealous of another person if you really have and you're in tune with this idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, everyone in a different way, and he has his tools to perform his mission in life. Yiratzon will be zoiche to continuing laleches bedrochov, to continue to grow and get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and realize that the race is not between us and someone else, but it's rather between us and our potential. Yiratzon that we live a life that we aspire to get closer and closer to Hashem. Just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is all about giving, He didn't need to create us, but He did it for us to be meitiv. And if a person does that as well and aspires for that, he'll be more in tune to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he'll be connected to Hashem, and he'll have even more geshmak in this world, for sure in Olam Haba, but even in this world, because the whole spiritual DNA of the world that Hashem created is in a way to be like Hashem. And we're Tzelem Elokim Imal, we're connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in our neshama, and if we'll also be working on ourselves to get closer to Hashem and mimic His midos and totally focus on getting close to Hashem, Imele, the whole idea of gaiva will literally evaporate and won't be bichlal in our radar. And anything we'll do is we'll be concentrating on getting closer to Hashem and being like HaKadosh Baruch Hu as much as we can, which means to be meitiv with our other fellow Jews. And through that, even in this world, we'll be zoichet to have more enjoyment, and whoever has reached such a goal knows that the feeling of giving is way more deeper, and it's a way more ever longing simcha, and a feeling of satiation as opposed to receiving. Yiratzon will continue to have this frame of mind going through life and always getting close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, especially in our generation, as the Chafetz Chaim and other Gedolim said, that in our generation, every little step that we do to get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is like 100 steps. couple of years ago, because it's getting harder and harder to fight the current, this Western culture, where the way the world is going. So every step we do to fight that, get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is worth a lot more than it was in previous generations. Have a good Shabbos.
Thank you for joining us. This is the Prism of Torah. Visit our website, prismoftorah.com, where you'll find a full archive of hundreds of past Divrei Torah. Subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and don't forget to share with your friends and family. Sponsorship opportunities are available for all of our episodes. Thank you, Yona Vefa, for your recording equipment. Produced by Eli Podcast Productions.